Hello, my name is Stuart, the unrepentant atheist. Well, I think I've made about 4 videos in 2 days, which is way too many. You must be thinking I've got nothing better to do. I hope I don't end up like the amazing atheist. He's this guy who I think about 10 or 15 years ago started making videos in his mid-20s. He's quite sort of loud with the way he puts things across, but he was quite a colourful character, lots of life in him and quite charismatic. I followed him for 1 or 2 years and I lost track of him, but fast forward 10 years, and I had a look at one of his recent videos, and he's sort of in a darkened room, rocking backwards and forwards, half incoherent. So I hope I don't end up like that. But anyway, let's set that aside for now. Yeah, Alex O'Connor, Cosmic Skeptic, debating, not really debating, having a conversation with William Lane Craig. So they won't need any introduction. And I suppose that William Lane Craig is probably one of the most famous apologists. So it was it was quite a sort of polite, relatively polite. Um, I'm not such a big fan of Craig. I think people think he's a nice guy, but I don't think he is. Um, there's a lot of jibes, there's a lot of digs at atheists, a lot of insults, which, he's got a big Christian smile on his face all the time. And I don't think he's a nice guy that a lot of people think he is. And obviously, I think he's basically wrong. And I don't for a minute think he believes in Jesus because of the Kalam cosmological argument. There probably isn't anybody that does believe for that reason. But this is his thing, the Kalam. And I believe that he actually did some work on it when he was doing his doctorate, and he dubbed it the Kalam, which is um, an Arabic word, I think, or something like that, effectively meaning doctrine, established doctrine. I'm not sure about that. But getting on to the conversation that they had, yes, it was very polite. They, Alex isn't known as somebody who gets angry. He isn't known as somebody who tries to destroy his opponents. He's a very reasonable person, and I think it's probably one of the reasons why ultimately him and Matt Dillahunty sort of fell out. Not that I think Alex fell out with him. I think that I think Matt, maybe with some justification, because I don't agree with Alex on veganism, not at all. But that's for another video. Um, yeah. So this debate about the Kalam cosmological argument. Obviously, I'm not convinced by it. I'm not convinced that either of the two premises are actually true. But obviously, for the sake of argument, we often accept that those two premises are true, but it only gets you to a cause. It doesn't get you to a God, let alone the Christian God that William Lane Craig believes in. So, but he hasn't really properly justified that. He seems to be more or less focused on the Kalam cosmological argument, maybe because it's his baby, and he seems to know it inside out. I couldn't always follow his arguments. I think some of his arguments, border on sophistry, frankly. If you're a Christian, you'll probably disagree. He's got Christians fawning all over him. He's their big champion, and I think it was probably quite a good ploy of Alex to take it easy with William Lane Craig. He's won a lot of new subscribers to his channel, Christian subscribers, who, quite frankly, I doubt if they'll ever visit his channel again unless William Lane Craig is on it. But anyway, so as for the actual conversation itself, there was one thing I would like to pick up on and focus on. The last 20 minutes or so, Alex brought up something which I've not really considered before. And although William Lane Craig kind of dismissed it and said that atheists, if they want to dismiss the Kalam on the grounds that Alex is suggesting, would have to give up a lot intellectually to do so, that there would be a big intellectual price to pay, it's one of those digs and one of those jibes that he's quite well known for. And it's one of the reasons why I say that he's not a very nice person. I've also read some of his stuff, and he's very scathing. And if he Christians are going to him and asking him various questions, oh, I've been talking to an atheist, and the atheist said this, that, and the other, and and then he's saying, well, it just shows that atheist hasn't got an idea what they're talking about, etc., etc., etc. Well, fair enough. Okay, but that's irrelevant. So on to Alex's point, because he's more or less saying, in what sense do things begin to exist? What do we mean exactly by that? And well, William Lane Craig says, well, okay, let's take human beings. There was a point, say, 10 million years ago when human beings didn't exist. Now they exist, therefore they must have begun to exist. Well, yes, but maybe no, maybe not necessarily. If you're going to say that something began to exist, I assume there's a beginning. No, it's not just assume. No, there is a beginning. A race begins, and it begins at point zero. And then the clock starts. So if something begins to exist, you should be able to say at what point it started existing. And at what point did human beings start existing? You can't say. Craig asserted that there are paleontologists whose work it is, and they know when they've got fossils, human remains, they know when human beings started existing. No, they don't. They don't know that. If he thinks that, he doesn't understand paleontology. They don't know that at all. And if you look at evolution, we know that evolution is incremental, minute changes over thousands, tens of thousands, and hundreds of thousands of years. And there's no specific point at which a human being started existing. If you think that you can debunk that, go ahead in the comments. Go ahead and debunk it. But I don't think there's a point at which a human being started existing. But let's set that aside, because Alex went a step further, and this is the key point. And I sometimes don't think that Christians, theists, are probably thinking that the universe is basically, as far as we know, everything that there is which exists, and that its birth or its expansion is a kind of all-encompassing event, unique event, which is everything that there is. It's something which you can't apply any analogy to. And so when you say everything that begins to exist has a cause, you're looking all around you and seeing all these things. You're seeing things in nature, things that man has made, etc., etc., etc. And you're comparing that with this all-encompassing event, cosmological, as far as we know, one-off event, which effectively gave birth to everything which exists. And I wonder how valid that is. I would think it's not valid. But let's go back to what Alex was saying, because he didn't actually take that step which I've just taken and say that it's not valid for that reason. But he kind of, in a roundabout way, did. Because he's saying that, for example, this cup, when did this cup begin to exist? At which point did it begin to exist? Well, it's not that it objectively began to exist, because it's simply a rearrangement of existing matter, fundamental particles, atoms, etc. And these fundamental particles only began to exist when the universe began to exist. So, in a way, the cup only began to exist when the universe began to exist, and that all we see is a rearrangement of particles, and it's a construct of the mind that we see it and we call it a cup. But in reality, in cosmological terms, all it is just a pile of atoms which were pre-existing, which were born out of fundamental particles which came into existence when the universe expanded. I won't say began to exist, because I'm still not convinced that in that sense the universe did begin to exist. not 100% convinced. So I think this is quite a good line of reasoning. Alex kind of retreated on it when he started admitting that it's very. Craig started saying, "Well, that's very radical." Called it a form of nihilism. I can't remember the exact. He said this has got a name for it, um, and he said, you don't understand how radical this is, and it doesn't fit with any model of reality." He got really, but I could see that he looked worried. His brow was all wrinkled, and he looked upset and worried about the whole thing. But he dismissed it, saying that it's too radical, um, and then he was saying that for atheists to accept this critique, they would have to lower their intellectual standards. This is another one of the digs and jibes which Craig is famous for, and again, which I don't think he's such a nice person as people think he is. I'm not fooled by his smile. So, but I think that Alex is onto something here. I believe that he's written some more on this, and I need to go and check him out to see what he said. I don't know. Do you know whether he's pursued this particular argument? Because I think it could well be quite a fruitful one. I don't think it's the main thing on which the Kalam falls. There are other reasons why the Kalam for me is not convincing, but um, obviously he was engaging Craig on in a way on Craig's terms, and I did think he paid him a bit too much respect. But he's a very well balanced and articulate young man. He's incredibly intelligent, and he's obviously very hardworking. He really knows his stuff. But I did think that he conceded a little bit too much ground at the end, and he left Craig with the feeling that he'd kind of gone away winning the argument, which is nonsense. Well, it's nonsense because my big objection to any of the arguments for the existence of God is that they're violating Occam's razor by introducing a mystery to explain a mystery, and I don't see any justification for that. So because you're just kicking the can down the road, and you're just introducing a whole new set of problems, and there's no need for it. I don't think that we know enough. I don't think physicists know enough, and I do feel that in time to come, we will know more about how the universe began, or whether it began at all, or whether there was a huge expansion and then a crunch, and then maybe it's just ongoing. This so-called nothing, as I understand it from physicists, wasn't nothing. But yeah, just coming back to that one more time, anything that began to exist. Just coming back to what Alex was saying, why aren't things? Because Alex seems to feel that if something begins to exist, it's literally coming to exist out of nothing. I mean, really nothing, the absence of absolutely anything. That it could be happening, but we might not be aware of it, which I suppose is a possibility. But on the other hand, from Craig's point of view, the universe beginning to exist is something that was caused by God. Yeah, it was caused by God. There was no pre-existing material, and it's virtually synonymous with magic. In other words, God manifested the universe. God caused the universe to begin to exist, and that's why, just coming back to my rejection of that analogy with saying that things begin to exist. In other words, this cup began to exist because it's made out of pre-existing material, and in the sense that Craig means that God literally magicked the universe out of nothing. It's not the same thing, and if it's not the same thing, you can't use those terms. Everything that began to exist, because Alex is right. In that sense, only the universe began to exist, or shall we say, the fundamental particles uh, began to exist when God manifested them. And that's not comparable with anything else that we've got. It's just, as I said before, an encompassing cosmic event, which resulted in everything the material world, which we've now got before us. So I'll put a link below. I don't know whether you've seen that debate. I'm sure you've got some thoughts on it. But yeah, again, it's kind of frustrating because I feel I've never come across a Christian who said that the Kalam convinced them and that's why they're a Christian. And it's another one of these examples of kind of clutching at straws to shore up an unjustified faith. Well, that's the way I see it. I don't know what you think. I suppose if you're a Christian, you won't agree. But and if you're an atheist, you probably will. But that's just the nature of things. Okay, I'll upload this now, and I look forward to your comments. Bye for now.